Give me just a second. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is able to hear me. If you are unable to hear sound at this time, could you please leave a comment in the chat box? I am Kimberly Grinston, Executive Director for the Board of Pharmacy, and today we are doing our annual webinar for 2023 graduates, all of you who will be graduating from pharmacy school and applying for pharmacist licensure in the state of Missouri. First, congratulations on your upcoming graduation. The goal of our webinar today is severalfold. We're going to share some information for the graduation season so that you all know what applying in Missouri will look like. We have some substantial changes that I'll talk with you about on today. Before I begin, let me start with webinar design. All participants are muted in listen-only mode. There is a telephone audio option when you joined the webinar. If you click phone call, it will give you a dial-in number and a access code for the webinar. If you'd like to ask a question, you can post down below under the chat section of the webinar. We'll try to save room for questions at the end. Once again, this presentation shouldn't be very long. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have about the 2023 graduation season. We're going to talk about several things. Once again, 2023 graduation and what that means for people applying for pharmacist licensure in Missouri. We're also going to share some information for those of you who may be applying in other states and some information that you may need. We'll also give just a few comments and notes about the upcoming MPJE that you all will be taking shortly. And then again, we'll try to leave some time for questions and answers. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So this call is mainly geared towards students from UMKC, Still COP, SIUE, and KU. Although this information will apply to anyone else that may be applying in Missouri right now. But we want to give you some general information about what's changed this year, what the licensing process will look like, and a few of these things. First, I want to let you know that we've had some staff changes in the board office. So this year for graduation season, you will be handling or working with different staff at the board office. But, and I can't stress this enough, we've had some substantial changes for 2023 that we're going to go through on today. Let's talk about those. So this is the old 2022 application process. This is the board pharmacist licensing process that you all may have heard about, some of your classmates may have experienced last year. So in 2022, the way the application process worked is that you filed a pharmacist license application with the Missouri Board of Pharmacy. You also filed a license application or an exam application with NABP, the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. We then, meaning the board, would notify NABP when you were authorized to take the test, and then you scheduled your testing process through NABP. This process was difficult and different for us and actually across the nation because we had to toggle, and you all did as well, between the Board of Pharmacy and also NABP. We would get calls saying, I've registered with NABP, they're waiting for the board to grant authorization to test. Sometimes you all had an application pending with us, and NABP did not have you ready or registered to be declared eligible to test. At times, when we are in the middle of graduation season, forgive the typo at the top of the screen, when we are in graduation season, we would have a lot of graduates applying, and literally we would check multiple times a day to see who may have registered for the exam. At other times, people would call us and send emails to the board office, increasing emails and phone volume. And you all also received delayed responses asking about where you were on the authorization to test process. NABP has done a lot of changes in their application process, and the board recently approved a new application process that will be applicable in 2023. So for 2023, this is what our new application process, give me just a moment. Sorry, I don't know what may have happened there, but I'm going to walk you through what our 2023 process is going to look like for all new graduates. And give me just a second and I'll have this back up and running again. There you go. So, okay, we should be back online. So this year for 2023, the application process, you're going to start, instead of applying with the board first, the board voted to allow NABP to grant authorization to test on behalf of the state. Out of all of the applications that we received requesting authorization to test for the last several years, the board has not denied any of them. And so we work with NABP on how we can make this process more seamless for you graduates who are applying to take the exam, so that you all would know what the exam process is, and also we could avoid delays between the board office and NABP. So for 2023, you will first be filing your NABP exam application with NABP. NABP will then grant authorization to test, and then give you authorization to purchase the exam. I want to note that NABP will only do that after they receive confirmation that you've graduated. They've gotten transcripts directly from your school or college as well. So 2 things need to be in place before NABP allows you to test and purchase the exam. Number 1, they need graduation confirmation from your school and a copy of your transcript. I understand NABP has worked with the schools. All of that information will be electronically provided to NABP. After that time, you will then purchase the exams and schedule a testing date through NABP and Pearson VUE, who's their current testing vendor. You will all take and pass the NAPLEX and MPJE. For those people who are doing score transfers and you're bringing in or sending in your NAPLEX score from another state, you will only be taking the MPJE. Once you pass both exams and you're eligible for licensure, then you're going to submit your application in Missouri. Complete the fingerprinting process. What we are going to do is we're going to pull your exam scores, your transcripts, and your intern hours. All of that is going to be pulled electronically from via NABP. So in the past, we had candidates sending us transcripts. We had scores at times. We had intern hours coming in separately at times. And again, we were toggling, or you all were toggling between the board and NABP. For the first year, you all will start your application with NABP, apply to take the exam, take the exams, and then submit your Missouri license application to the board office. And I'll talk in a minute about those who have already started your board application under the last year's process. I'll tell you how we'll handle those. Once NABP releases your score reports to the board office, this will be purely electronic, so you won't need to do anything. You don't need to call the board office to let us know that you've passed or that you're ready for licensure. Once you do that, the board will electronically pull your scores from NABP and then issue or approve your pharmacist license. Once you pass the exams, a lot of people don't know there is a gap between when the board receives your score and when you receive your score. So most people are aware that they've passed before that score is officially reported to the board. The reason for that is severalfold. Number 1, NABP does a review of the score to make sure that the score is consistent and valid and that we don't have any other issues with the score. NABP does a multi-level verification and then officially notifies the state board. So give us about 1 to 2 weeks for NABP to officially release your score to the board office. We cannot take score reports from candidates or applicants. We can only receive NABP exam scores from NABP itself. Last year, currently, I think during the height of graduation season, we saw approximately a 7 to 10 day delay. In some instances, we had scores that were reported out within 4 or 5 days, but generally that took anywhere from 7 to 10 days. So just know that as an FYI. I don't know if this year will be any different. So after you submit your Missouri application, you've passed your exams, you've gone through NABP, you then apply in Missouri. Don't forget that you have to complete the fingerprint process. And you can do that either before you submit your Missouri NABP applications or after. However, one caution, fingerprints are only valid for 6 months. So if by the time you finish the exam process, your fingerprints are older than 6 months, you will need to be re-fingerprinted and submit the fee. So let's say you graduate in May, you're not planning to test until September or October, score reports come back in November, and you possibly don't finish everything up until January, February. You may have to be re-fingerprinted. For those of you who are asking or calling and asking about getting fingerprinted in April, we would advise you not to do that because we don't want you to hit that 6-month window should there be an issue. So I want to walk through this again, just bullet point this, 2023 changes. You have to apply with NABP first. Now, for those who've already submitted an application to the board, we will go ahead and process those and send those and send a grant authorization to test with NABP. You don't need to do anything extra. So if a student accidentally or uses the old process and submits a Missouri application, that's fine. We will still process you. There won't be any delays in your application as long as you're registered with NABP. You do not have to contact the board when you register with NABP. You don't have to send the board transcripts and intern hours. Again, we will pull those directly from NABP. The only time you will be reapplying to the board is if you have to retake one or both of the exams. Now, I believe everybody on this call is going to pass the exams first try, so this message is not for you, but for other people who may not be on this call, if you do need to retake the exam, you would need to submit an application to the Missouri board to retake the exam before you're allowed to retake it with NABP. We are still going to be receiving intern hours from your schools. Many of you have us report those intern hours out to other states. We will still receive them and note them on your official licensing record. So if you need us to certify hours, we will be able to do that. This change in process will not affect that. I want to go through some very common application mistakes very quickly with you, just so that you know what we're seeing. Our biggest one is your applications not being signed and notarized here in the board office. Please make sure this will be our last year of doing paper applications. For those of you who are submitting paper applications this year, they must be signed and notarized. If not, we have to reject those back and it will delay your license. Your school not listed on your application, we do match this up with what is in or what we receive from NABP. Even if you're on your school's graduation list, you need to list the name of your school on your application. Last year, we had several students from UMKC, Stillcop, SIUE, KU, whose name was on a master list of graduates. And their school wasn't listed, and it delayed us because we then had to match that up with the school that you were graduating from. So please make sure you do that. Make sure your money order, your check is signed. We send back a significant number of applications because of that. Using an old email address. If you're going to be graduating and your school email address will no longer be good, please give us a valid address. The board has moved and is moving towards a fully electronic process. We will be communicating with you about your application, including deficiencies, delays, other issues via email. So please make sure you provide a valid email address. If we have to mail something to your address because we cannot contact you via email, we are seeing up to 30-day delays on mailing, especially for packages or envelopes of largest size. We don't want that to happen to you. You could have a month's delay in getting licensed or even more just because we had to mail something as opposed to emailing it. So please give a good email address. Make sure you answer all the questions, criminal history questions. If you need to explain anything, please make sure you provide an explanation. You should be answering the questions accurately, even if you disclose the information with your intern pharmacist application. You should be providing that information again. Also, tax compliance. There are 3 short questions on that. If you're in doubt, answer it the best way you can. That will be vetted by the Department of Revenue. We just need to make sure it is complete for revenue reporting. And again, please explain all yes answers. Finally, name changes. A lot of people are getting married and or changing names after graduation. Please make sure that you have legal documentation to support your name change. So if you're changing your name and it is different from what we see on the transcript, it is different from what or how your account is registered with NABP, we do need legal documentation of your name change. That will be a copy of your marriage license, a court order, a decree of some kind, showing us that your name has officially been changed. Additional licensing notes, and I'm not going to spend too much time here, but if you're applying for a medication therapy services certificate, there is a $50 fee and a separate application. You should submit that when you apply for your Missouri pharmacist license. We are recommending that you hold those until you're ready for licensure, because we will not issue until your pharmacist license is issued, and we issue those simultaneously. Notifications of intent for those of you who are going to be immunizing, administering by prescription order. You do need to file a notification of intent with the board, and that can be done online. Here's just a quick screenshot of what the MTS application looks like. This is where you can file your online notification of intent. This is on the board's website under online services and reporting. You see that highlighted there. Your notification of intent, there are two, one to administer by protocol and one to administer by prescription order. If you're doing both, please complete two separate notifications. And if you have questions about that, there is an immunization webinar that is available on the board's website, or talk to your pharmacist in charge or a pharmacist at your practice site, and they can help you do that. Check NABP's e-profile, because NABP will be communicating with you about exam process as well. We've already covered NABP, maybe taking some additional time to provide us your scores. Please allow additional time for processing. The best way to contact the board right now is via email, especially during graduation season. We would be more than happy to answer your calls, but to be honest, we have several people monitoring our email account so that we can respond. I think we may have 3 to 4 people who may be able to respond, as opposed to 1 or 2 people on the phone. So if you have a question, please start with email, but of course, feel free to call us if you need to do so. The board has an online checklist so that you know your application status. You don't have to call and ask, where are you? We have an online checklist. I'll show you a screenshot of that in just a moment, but just know you can do that online. NABP may limit testing to 3 times per year, so please be mindful of that as you plan any retakes. Here's the screenshot of how to check your application on the board's website. We will push this information out again via an e-alert. If you're not signed up for the board's e-alerts with your new or soon-to-be email address, make sure you do that on the board's website. So I'm going to jump to just MPJE updates really quickly, just so that you know. We get a lot of questions about this. I want you to know that the exam has been updated to reflect all current law. So we've had some recent changes. For example, changes with DEA X waivers and a few other things in state law. It has been updated to reflect all current law. Rules updated after April 1st, 2023 are not on the exam. We are in legislative season. There is legislation that's being passed now. If it's passed after April 1, 2023, it will not be on the 2023 exam. As you look at statutes, look to see the enactment date. We are anticipating about 4 new statutes going into play in August. Don't know that for sure, but if that happens, I want you to know you will not be tested on anything that was not in place as of April 1, 2023. There's an updated MPJE guide on the board's website. If you go to Pharmacist, this is under the applications form section, you'll see a document that's called Laws Not Covered on the MPJE. We just recently, actually today, updated the document for 2023. It will give you information about the MPJE, including a list of statutes and rules, I'll show the next slide, that are not included on the MPJE. It will help you with studying if you know what is not included. We get questions about resources, and I want to leave time for some questions. Resources that we recommend. For those of you who don't know, on the board's website, we do publish a pharmacy practice guide. We recently released the 2023 version. It contains a general summary of current Missouri practice provisions, including notes from inspectors and also recommendations from the board. I can tell you that the MPJE borrows very heavily from the practice guide, which is based on statutes and rules. So the practice guide, it's a bit longer this year because we've had some new things passed, but it is a good way to get a quick understanding or an in-depth understanding of what Missouri law is. It doesn't cover everything. I want to stress that. It doesn't cover everything, but it does include several of the major areas. We've also published this year, for the first time in a while, a Missouri law book with statutes and rules that are all combined in one document. So if you're studying and you need to go through and look at the statutes and rules, I do suggest that you read through them. We also have in there relevant DEA statutes, relevant federal statutes, and even some relevant hospital statutes that will be on or may be on the MPJE as well. So look at the Missouri Law Book. A lot of people just look at the board's rules and the board statutes, but there are other things that impact the practice of pharmacy, including some rules from BNDD that are included in the Missouri Law Book. Other resources you should know about: the DEA Pharmacist Manual. The DEA publishes one on their website. And if you Google DEA Pharmacist Manual, you'll see the most updated version. BNDD, the Missouri Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, they do the same thing as well, specifically for pharmacies. Once again, there are questions on the MPJE about controlled substances, and both of these resources are very good. So that's just a general update about what is happening and the change in the MPJE process. At this time, if you have any questions, please enter your question in the question box or the chat box, either one, and I'll try to review those and we'll respond to as many as we can. So at this time, if you have any questions, please enter it there. Okay, so I have a question about interns. If I'm not mistaken, there's a question that is asking, do you need to resubmit your fingerprints if you submitted them as an intern? The answer is it depends. If those fingerprints were submitted more than 6 months ago, then you will need to be re-fingerprinted. If you were fingerprinted within the last 6 months, and we're going to count from the date that your application generally is filed, then you don't need to be re-fingerprinted. But be mindful that that 6-month period is still moving. Someone's said that they've already paid for their prints to be done. My understanding is that that payment is good for a period of time. We've seen people register to be fingerprinted for literally years. You have to register with Identigo and then register at a site with them to go give your fingerprints. Electronic fingerprints, please. Paper fingerprint cards will take several months to process, especially now. So if you've already paid, then just don't go get fingerprinted as of yet. You can wait until you're closer to your exam date or even when you pass your exams to get fingerprints done. We see returns on fingerprinting within a couple of days, but that could stretch out as all of the schools are graduating. So please be mindful of that. Someone's asking, if you don't pass the exam the first time, how long does it take to get to retest? First of all, everyone on this call is going to pass the first time. I just really believe that. But should you find yourself in a situation where you need to retake the exam, there is a retake fee and a retake app. It's a very basic application. It looks much like the pharmacist application without all of the school information. Once we get a retake examination request in, we usually grant those within maybe 2 to 3 days, possibly 5 days. If the office is very busy or we have an influx of applications, NABP will grant you authorization to test, and then you just need to reschedule. So generally, it's not an issue. If you do not pass the exam, within the first 3 tries, you are required to meet with the board prior to retesting. But again, everyone on this call is going to pass the exam. Someone is asking about the CE quiz assessment on the board's website, and is it updated to the 2023 practice guide? It is, and so that should be a good resource for you as well. Someone's asking if they can apply with NABP to take the NAPLEX and MPJE now. Yes, you can. I verified this with NABP. You can start your process with NABP right now. They will not give you authorization to test and allow you to test until your transcripts have been uploaded, but you can start the process with NABP right now if you'd like. I do need to note, for anyone who is requesting accommodations, ADA accommodations to take the exam, we delegated authority to NABP to handle those on behalf of the board. So you do not need to submit paperwork to the board. You can, and we will forward it to NABP for you, but your ADA request should go to NABP along with your application, and they will notify us and let you know if it's approved. Someone asked about transferring licenses across state lines. So it depends, and I'll do this very quickly. It depends on if you're fully licensed in Missouri. if you're fully licensed in Missouri, let's say after you get your Missouri pharmacist license, there is a window that you can transfer your NAPLEX score to another state. I apologize, I don't know what that time frame is because it's set with NABP, but you have to request that NABP transfer your score to another state. I suggest that you look at the candidate's guide, NABP's candidate guide, because we have students every year who have to wait for a full year because they didn't transfer their NAPLEX score within the relevant time period. And some states may make you wait even longer and practice in another state. So if you're going to be transferring out and you want your NAPLEX score sent over, check with NABP and go through NABP's process. If you're here and you want us to transfer your NAPLEX score, once again, that goes through NABP as well. Once you're licensed here, your entire reciprocity application or the entire other non-Missouri application process is handled through NABP and another state. There's nothing that our board needs to do. If you need us to request verification of your intern hours for another state, all you need to do is submit something in writing. Make sure you give us your name. We ask for your date of birth and another identifier other than your social security number. Please do not email social security numbers for security purposes. And we can verify your hours out to another state, provided they are registered with the board office. Someone's asking, can they change addresses during the application process? Yes, you can. Just make sure you contact us and NABP. That happens very often. Someone said that they just looked at the current board pharmacist application and it still has the old process. You are correct. That will be updated within the next couple of days. So the board just voted out the new process at their meeting on last week, Thursday. And so we haven't had a chance to get those updated, but hopefully by Wednesday, we should have that updated and online. Thank you. Should all pharmacists apply for an MTS certificate? You don't have to. It's only if you're going to be performing medication therapy services. Now, MTS is different from MTM. MTM is part of normal pharmacist practice, but if you are going to be adjusting medication or initiating medication under protocol with the physician, then you do need a medication therapy services certificate. That also includes like vancomycin dosing for those of you who may be working in hospitals or clinics. And so you will need an MTS certificate for that. Since all of you will be graduating with a PharmD, your PharmD is an automatic qualifier for MTS. So all you need to let us know is on the application, let us know that you have a PharmD and pay the appropriate fee. Someone's asking, they have a little bit of a rush to get licensed. They're asking, can they send their application to the board before their exam results come in? Great question. Yes, you can. I know that some of you are trying to match ASHP residency start dates. We are very mindful of that in the board office, and we stress that with NABP. But let's say you file with NABP, you've taken the exams. If you want to start the board licensing process at that time, you can. You don't have to wait until scores are back if you'd like us to begin working on that. So, okay, it is 12:43, and I think we got to, give me just a second. I see a few other questions coming in. I think I may have answered them. Someone's asking about first available exam dates and will that be delayed by requiring a transcript? So this is our second year going through this process with NABP. The transcript requirement is not a Missouri requirement. It is a NABP requirement for taking the exam. And again, I believe they have an electronic process for all of the schools to upload your transcripts. So we expressed that concern with NABP. Last year, we did not see a significant delay overall. I think from time of application, once your transcript was loaded, especially under the new process, and this is the benefit of the new process, you no longer have to wait for the state of Missouri to find out that you've applied and contact NABP and electronically grant you authorization to test. Once your transcript is uploaded, that ATT authorization usually comes within a few days and you're able to go register and take the exam. Please contact the board office if you're having problems scheduling. We always encourage people. Sometimes our big centers are full. You have to remember that the doctors are graduating and the nurses and social workers and psychologists, everyone is taking a licensing exam along with your students. taking some of your high school students, taking some of their exams as well. So we tell people the big cities may be full: St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, Columbia. Some of those cities may be filled. Think about maybe testing in a rural area. You can also test all over the country. So NABP has testing sites. Actually, they have international sites as well. We had people test while they were on vacation in, I think, the Bahamas. Not a way for me to spend vacation, but hey, if it works for you and you pass the exam, it works for me. So good question. I don't think you'll see a delay. And if you do, please contact the board office and we will follow up with NABP. It is 12:45. I thank everybody for joining us on today. We may do this webinar again. We understand that because of short notice, some of you were unable. There were people who were unable to make the call. We scheduled it because we were getting so many calls into the board office. But if you have any additional questions, please feel free to call the board or email us. I look forward to welcoming all of you as new Missouri pharmacists in the near future. Thank you and have a great day.